It was 1:30 in the morning when the pounding on my door shook me out of my half-sleep. At first I thought I was dreaming, until the banging grew louder, desperate, almost frantic. My heart raced as I stumbled to the door, unsure of what waited on the other side. When I finally pulled it open, my sister collapsed into my arms. Her face was streaked with tears, her hair tangled, her lips trembling. But what stopped me cold was the bruise already spreading across her cheek, and the way her whole body shook as though she had been running for her life. She could barely breathe out the words. He hit me. He hit me because of her. Her husband. The man she had once sworn was gentle, caring, protective, now reduced to a monster who raised his hand against her. And not just for any reason but over another woman. Mistress. A betrayal that cut deeper than any slap or punch could. As I held her, rage burned through me, but so did fear. What if he came looking for her? What if she went back to him, convinced by lies and promises he had no intention of keeping? My sister had always been the strong one, the one who laughed in the face of pain, yet now she was fragile, broken, and bleeding in front of me. That night was only the beginning. What followed would test not only her courage but mine. Because when a woman decides to walk away from the man who both loved and destroyed her, the battle doesn't end at the door. It only begins. And I was about to find out how far I'd go to keep my sister safe. It was 1:30 a.m. when the pounding began. At first, I thought it was just the wind rattling the door, because my apartment was on the corner and late-night drafts had a way of finding every crack and loose hinge. But the pounding grew louder, harder, frantic. Not the kind of sound you could mistake for weather. My heart skipped. Who in the world could be knocking at this hour? For a split second, I even considered not opening it. But then came the voice, weak and shaky, barely managing to cut through the wood between us. Please, open. Please. My body jolted upright from the couch where I had been dozing, the television screen still glowing faintly. That voice was familiar. I hurried to the door, fumbling with the lock, and the moment it swung open, my sister stumbled forward and collapsed against me. Her weight nearly knocked me back, but I caught her, my arms wrapping around her instinctively. Her face pressed into my shoulder, hot and wet with tears. I could feel her trembling, her entire body shuddering as though she had run through a storm. When I pulled her back just enough to look at her face, my breath froze in my chest. There it was. Bruise. Fresh, darkening, ugly against her pale cheek. And in her eyes, something I had never seen before. My sister, who had always been strong, fiery, even stubborn to the point of argument, now looked small and broken. Her lips trembled as if words wanted to escape but couldn't find the strength. Sit down, I said, guiding her to the couch. My voice came out firmer than I felt. My hands were shaking as I grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around her. What happened? Who did this? Her eyes flickered up at me, wide and desperate, and then darted away. She pressed her palm to her cheek as though trying to hide it. Finally, after a long silence, she whispered so low I almost didn't catch it. It was him. He hit me. My stomach turned. I knew exactly who him was. Her husband. The man she had defended so many times when I raised doubts. The man she had sworn was kind, gentle, the one who made her feel safe. I wanted to believe her once because I wanted her happiness to be real. But here she was, bruised and broken at my door in the middle of the night. I felt a hot rush of anger, sharp and bitter in my chest. He did this to you? I asked, almost not trusting my own voice. She nodded, biting her lip. More tears slid down her face, and then the words tumbled out all at once, rushed and breathless. He's been lying. He's been with someone else. Found out. I confronted him tonight. I thought he'd deny it or explain or something. But he didn't. He just laughed at me. And then, she broke off, her voice strangled. Her hand curled into a fist against the blanket. And then he hit me. Like I was nothing. Like I was dirt under his shoes. Her words sliced through me like a knife. I sat frozen, trying to take it in, but every detail she gave only made my blood boil hotter. I couldn't understand it. How could he? How could any man who promised to love someone lift his hand against her? And over another woman? I reached out and gently cupped her chin, making her look at me. Listen to me. You're safe now. He's not here. He can't touch you here. Her shoulders slumped, and she nodded faintly, but I could see the fear still clinging to her. Every sound outside the apartment seemed to make her flinch. A car passing, the creak of the pipes, even my phone vibrating on the table. She was raw nerves, every bit of her stripped down by what he had done. I wanted to storm over to his house right then, pound on his door, and make him feel even half the pain he had caused her. But one look at her, trembling, fragile, barely able to keep herself upright, stopped me. This moment wasn't about my anger. It was about her survival. Do you want me to call the police? I asked softly. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head violently. No, please don't. If they show up, he'll know where I am. He'll come here. He'll, she trailed off, her chest heaving with panicked breaths. I grabbed her hand and squeezed it firmly. Okay, no police. Not tonight. But you're staying here. You're not going back to him. Do you hear me? Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but then her resolve crumbled. She pressed her forehead into my shoulder and whispered, I can't go back. Not tonight. I thought I knew him. But I don't. I don't even know who he is anymore. I stroked her hair gently, the way I used to when we were kids, and she cried over scraped knees. But this wasn't a scrape. This was deeper, uglier, a wound no bandage could cover. We sat like that for a long time, the silence broken only by her muffled sobs. I fetched her a glass of water, though her hands shook too much to hold it steady. I had to lift it for her, and that simple act, my strong, independent sister needing me to help her drink, cut me to the core. Eventually, exhaustion took over. Her breathing slowed, her body grew heavier against me, and she drifted into a restless sleep on the couch. I adjusted the blanket around her, watching the faint rise and fall of her chest. The bruise on her cheek looked even darker under the dim lamplight, and I couldn't stop staring at it, as though memorizing it would burn the truth into me. This happened, and it was no nightmare. I sank into the chair across from her, my mind racing even though my body was drained. What was I supposed to do now? Tomorrow, when she woke up, would she try to go back to him? Would he come looking for her, pounding on my door the way she had? Would she forgive him despite everything? Because that's what abused women sometimes do when love and fear are tangled too tightly to separate. I didn't know the answers, and that terrified me. All I knew was this: if he dared come near her again, he'd have to go through me first. That night stretched on endlessly. Every sound outside made me rise and check the peephole, half expecting to see him standing there, wild-eyed and demanding her back. But the hallway stayed empty, and the world beyond my door stayed mercifully quiet. When dawn finally began to bleed through the blinds, I was still awake. My sister stirred, her face softening in sleep, though the shadows of fear lingered in every line. I watched her, and for the first time in hours, I let out a long breath. She had made it through the night. She was safe, at least for now. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Morning light slipped through the blinds, pale and uncertain, casting soft stripes across the living room. I hadn't slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, flashes of last night returned. The pounding at my door, my sister's trembling frame collapsing into my arms, the ugly bruise spreading across her cheek. I sat in the armchair still, stiff from hours of watchfulness, my body aching with fatigue but my mind wired with restless energy. When I finally heard her stir, a low groan escaping her lips, my chest tightened. She blinked her eyes open, dazed for a moment, as though unsure of where she was. Then memory returned, and I saw it in the way her expression darkened, the way her hand instinctively reached for her face as if to cover the mark. "You're safe," I said gently, leaning forward. "It's just me here." She nodded faintly, though her shoulders curled inward like she wanted to make herself invisible. I got up and walked into the kitchen, putting the kettle on. The simple clink of metal against the stove seemed absurdly loud in the quiet. I busied myself with mugs and tea bags, anything to fill the silence. When I returned with 2 steaming cups, she was sitting upright, hugging the blanket around herself. Her hair was tangled, her eyes swollen from crying, but she managed a small thank you when I placed the mug in her hands. She blew on the tea but didn't sip it. Her gaze drifted toward the window, unfocused, distant. We sat in silence for a while, the faint hum of the kettle cooling in the background. Finally I spoke. "Do you want to talk about it?" She flinched, then sighed, her fingers tightening around the mug. "I don't even know where to start." "Start anywhere. Just tell me what happened." For a long moment she was quiet. Then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, she began. "I found her perfume. That's how it started. A scarf too. Tucked into his drawer, not mine. At first I thought maybe I was imagining things, overthinking. But the lies, they piled up. He worked late, came home smelling of drinks I hadn't poured, lipstick smudged faintly on his collar. I wanted to believe it was stress, that he was just tired, but my gut told me otherwise. So I asked him. She swallowed hard. And he laughed. Her voice broke on the last word. I felt my jaw tighten, my nails digging into my palms. He laughed at me like I was stupid for even caring. He said, "So what if I see someone else? What are you going to do about it?" And then when I shouted at him, when I pushed him to admit it, she stopped, shuddering, her eyes filling again. "He hit me." The words dropped like stones into the quiet room. She pressed her palm against her cheek, as though reliving the moment, and her whole body trembled. I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. "That wasn't your fault. Do you hear me? Nothing you did justifies what he did." But she shook her head. "Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I should have stayed quiet." "No," I said sharply, louder than I meant to. Her eyes flicked up, startled. I took a breath, softening my tone. "Don't do that to yourself. Don't excuse him. You confronted him because you deserve the truth. And he responded with violence. That's on him, not you." Her lips quivered, but she didn't argue. She just stared down at the tea she hadn't touched, as if searching its surface for an answer. The silence stretched again, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to shake her, to pull her out of the fog he had wrapped around her. Instead, I said carefully, "What do you want to do now?" She let out a bitter laugh, hollow and short. "I don't know. I don't even know who I am anymore. Last night I ran. I didn't pack a bag, didn't take anything. Just my phone and my keys. And even now, I feel like maybe I made a mistake." A mistake. My heart clenched. "Leaving him was the smartest thing you've done. You're alive, you're safe. That's not a mistake." Her eyes filled again, tears slipping down her cheeks. "But what if he changes? What if he really means it when he says he's sorry?" The anger that surged in me was almost unbearable. "Sorry doesn't erase bruises," I snapped. Then I softened again, hating the sharpness in my voice. "Listen, he hit you once. Do you think it'll stop there? Men like that don't just stop. They find excuses. They blame you. They make you think you deserve it. But you don't." She didn't reply. She just stared at her lap, silent tears dripping onto the blanket. I reached across and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You're not alone in this. Whatever you decide, I'll stand by you. But please, don't go back to him." Her fingers tightened around mine, a flicker of strength returning. "I don't want to go back. Not now. But I'm scared." "That's okay," I whispered. "Being scared means you understand how serious this is. Means you're thinking. But we'll figure it out. Together." For the rest of the morning I kept her close. She barely touched the tea, but she ate a few bites of toast I insisted she try. I busied myself with chores, pretending it was a normal day, hoping the rhythm of sweeping, folding laundry, and clattering dishes might ease her. But every so often I caught her staring off, lost in thoughts I couldn't reach. By afternoon, her phone buzzed on the table. We both froze. The screen lit up with his name. My sister's breath hitched, her whole body stiffening. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the glowing letters. The buzzing stopped, then started again. "Don't answer it," I said firmly. Her lips trembled. "What if he comes here? Then he'll answer to me," I said, my voice cold. The phone finally went silent, but the damage was done. She curled into herself, shaking again. I sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, and whispered, "You're safe. He doesn't get to decide what happens anymore." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. Men like him didn't give up easily. And I knew, deep in my gut, this was only the beginning of a war neither of us had expected to fight. That night, after she fell asleep again on the couch, I sat awake in the dark, the quiet pressing heavy against my chest. I thought about calling the police, about filing a report, about dragging him into the light where his fists couldn't hide. But I remembered her panicked eyes, her desperate no, and I couldn't do it, not yet. Instead, I whispered into the silence, more to myself than to anyone, "I'll protect you, no matter what it takes." And I meant it. The following days blurred together in a haze of unease. My apartment, once quiet and ordinary, had become a place of constant tension. The air seemed heavier, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. My sister tried to settle in, folding the blanket neatly each morning, helping me wash dishes, even offering to cook, but beneath every small act lingered a nervousness she couldn't shake. Her phone was the enemy. Every few minutes, it buzzed, lighting up with his name. Sometimes it rang and rang, a shrill sound that made her flinch. Sometimes it was just a message. Apologies at first, then anger, then pleading. "I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean it. Please come home. You're ruining everything. You belong here. Stop acting like a child. If you don't answer me, I'll come find you." She showed me some of them, her hands trembling as she scrolled. Others I knew she deleted before I could see. I didn't press her. I could already imagine the cruel things he wrote. Every time the phone lit up, I told her the same thing. "Block him. Don't read. Don't reply." But she couldn't bring herself to do it. She clung to that little screen like it was a lifeline, even though it was really a chain. I knew why. A part of her still hoped he would change, that the man she thought she married might resurface. Hope, I realized, could be its own kind of prison. One evening, 3 days after she had arrived, I came home from work to find her pacing the living room, her hair disheveled, her face pale. The coffee table was littered with her phone, tissues, and an untouched plate of food. "He said he knows I'm here," she blurted out as soon as I closed the door. Her voice cracked, hysteria simmering beneath the words. "He said if I don't come back, he'll." She pressed her hands to her face, sobbing. I rushed to her side, gripping her shoulders. "What did he say? Tell me." "He said he'd drag me home. That I can't hide. That no one can keep me from him." My blood boiled, fury crashing through me. I wanted to grab the phone and hurl it against the wall. Instead, I forced my voice to steady. "Listen to me. He doesn't control you anymore. He doesn't get to decide what happens. You're here, with me. And I swear he will not touch you again." But even as I said it, doubt flickered. Could I really keep him away? What if he showed up here, furious and wild? I tried to mask my fear, but my sister saw it. She always had a way of reading me too easily. "You don't understand," she whispered. "He's stronger than you think. When he's angry, it's like something takes over him. I've seen it in his eyes. If he comes here, he'll..." Her voice trailed off, but the terror in her eyes finished the sentence for her. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside, a car door slamming, footsteps in the hallway, voices drifting up from the street, made me rise, my heart racing. I checked the peephole 6 times, but the corridor was always empty. My sister dozed fitfully on the couch, jerking awake at the faintest noise. Neither of us said it aloud, but we both knew. He could come any moment. The breaking point came on the 5th night. We had just finished dinner, sitting in uneasy silence, when a sharp knock rattled the door. Both of us froze. It wasn't the frantic, desperate knocking of my sister that night she came. This was slower, heavier, deliberate. My sister's face drained of color. Her eyes locked on mine, wide and pleading. "It's him," she mouthed. I held up a hand, motioning for her to stay quiet. My pulse hammered in my ears as I crept toward the door. I pressed my eye to the peephole. It was him. He stood in the hallway, shoulders hunched, his jaw tight, his eyes wild. Even through the fisheye glass, I could see the tension radiating off him, the anger barely contained. "Open the door," he barked, his voice muffled but unmistakable. The sound jolted my sister like an electric shock. She buried her face in her hands, rocking slightly. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing myself to stay calm. "You need to leave," I called back through the door. His head snapped toward the peephole, as if he knew I was watching. His lips curled into a sneer. "She's my wife. She belongs with me. Don't you dare keep her from me." My hands clenched into fists. "She's safe here. You don't get to touch her again. Leave now, or I'll call the police." That he laughed. A low, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. "Police? You think they care? You think she'll even talk to them? She won't. She knows she belongs to me. You can't protect her forever." Behind me, I heard my sister's stifled sobs. I wanted to open the door, to drag him by the collar and throw him down the stairs, but I forced myself to stay still. That's what he wanted, for me to lash out, to give him a reason to explode. Instead, I said coldly, "This is your last warning. Leave." For a tense moment, silence. Then he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a growl. "This isn't over. She'll come crawling back. She always does." And then, just like that, he turned and walked away. His footsteps echoed down the hall until they faded, but the chill he left behind lingered. I sagged against the door, my body trembling from the effort of holding myself steady. My sister peeked up from the couch, her face streaked with tears. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He never stops." I crossed the room and knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "Then we'll make him stop. We'll do whatever it takes, restraining order, police, whatever you need. You don't have to fight him alone anymore." Her eyes searched mine, torn between fear and fragile hope. "Do you really think I can get away from him?" "Yes," I said firmly. "But you have to believe it too. That's the only way he loses." That night, as we lay awake listening to the hum of the city outside, I knew something had shifted. The illusion of safety had shattered. He knew where she was. He had come to the door. The storm we feared wasn't coming anymore. It had already arrived. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about protecting her from him. It was about helping her believe she was worth protecting. The morning after his visit, the apartment felt different. It was no longer just a safe space for my sister. It had become a fragile barricade, a thin wall between her and the man who claimed to own her. She barely moved from the couch, her eyes hollow, as if the knock on the door had stolen the last shred of strength she had left. I busied myself making coffee, more for something to do than because I needed it. My hands shook as I poured, the sound of liquid hitting the mug louder than usual in the tense silence. Finally, I set the cup in front of her. "We can't wait anymore," I said quietly. "He came here. He knows where you are. He's not going to stop until someone makes him." She looked up, her eyes rimmed red. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to go to the police. Today." Her face crumpled, her lips parting as if I had suggested the unthinkable. "No, no, I can't." "Yes, you can," I pressed, trying to keep my voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to keep running and hiding. You don't have to let him control you anymore." Her hands clutched the blanket around her like armor. "You don't understand. He'll get angrier. He'll retaliate. He always finds a way. And the police. What if they don't believe me? What if they look at me and think I'm just another hysterical wife?" I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. "They will believe you. And even if they don't take it seriously at first, I'll be there. I'll make them listen." You have proof, the bruise on your face, the messages on your phone. You're not alone anymore. She stared at me for a long time, the silence heavy between us. I could see the war in her eyes, fear battling with a faint spark of something else. Something I hadn't seen in days. Resolve. I don't know if I'm strong enough, she whispered. You don't have to be strong, I said. You just have to be willing. I'll be the strength until you find yours again. For the first time since she arrived, her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, though it trembled and vanished almost immediately. Okay, she said at last, her voice soft but steady. Let's go. By the time we reached the police station, her hands were trembling so badly she could barely hold her phone. She clutched it like a talisman, the screen glowing with unread messages. I walked beside her, trying to radiate calm even though my own heart was racing. Inside, the sterile smell of disinfectant mixed with the faint hum of voices. A uniformed officer sat behind a desk, typing. When we approached, he looked up. Can I help you? My sister froze, her throat bobbing as she tried to find her voice. I stepped forward, placing a steady hand on her back. Yes, I said firmly. We're here to report domestic violence. The officer's expression shifted, the tired lines of his face tightening with focus. He gestured toward a chair. Have a seat. Someone will take your statement shortly. We sat side by side, my sister twisting her hands in her lap. Every second felt like an eternity. I could almost hear the storm raging in her head, the doubt, the fear, the echoes of his threats. I reached over and squeezed her fingers. She squeezed back, faint but real. When a female officer appeared, introducing herself as Detective Ruiz, something in my sister's posture softened. Ruiz had kind eyes, steady but warm, and she guided us into a small interview room. My sister sat stiffly in the chair, staring at the table. It's okay, Ruiz said gently. Take your time. Start wherever you can. For a long moment, silence. Then, slowly, haltingly, my sister began to speak. She told the story, of the perfume, the lies, the mistress, the fight, the slap. Her voice wavered, broke, but she kept going, her words tumbling out in fits and starts. Every time she faltered, Ruiz nodded, patient and calm, guiding her forward. I watched her, awe building in me. She was terrified, but she was speaking. For the first time, she wasn't letting his shadow silence her. When she finished, Ruiz leaned forward. Thank you. That was brave. We'll file a report, and with the evidence from your phone and your visible injuries, we can request a protective order immediately. My sister's eyes widened. Protective order. It's a restraining order, Ruiz explained. It means he can't come near you, can't contact you. If he tries, he can be arrested. It's not a perfect shield, but it's a powerful tool. I felt my sister exhale, a shaky sound that seemed to release something she'd been holding inside. For the first time, I saw her shoulders lift a little, as if the weight was just slightly lighter. We spent the next few hours filling out paperwork, handing over her phone for copies of the threatening messages, taking photographs of her bruises. It was draining, exhausting, but each step felt like a brick laid in the foundation of her freedom. By the time we left, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson. My sister clutched the folded copy of the protective order like it was a shield. She still looked fragile, but now there was something else in her eyes. Spark. In the car, she whispered almost to herself. I did it. I actually did it. Yes, I said, my throat tight with pride. You did. That night, she moved with a new kind of energy. She helped me cook dinner, laughing softly when I burned the rice. The sound was small, but it was music. We sat together at the table, and though the shadow of him still lingered, it didn't feel quite as suffocating. But just as I started to believe we had turned a corner, her phone buzzed again. She had left it on the counter, charging. We both froze. The protective order was barely 12 hours old, and already he was breaking it. I picked up the phone before she could. The message was short, but it chilled me to the bone. You think a piece of paper will keep me away? Just wait. I showed her, and her face crumpled, fear crashing back in. "He'll never stop," she whispered, tears spilling. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her tight. "He will," I said fiercely. "Because now it's not just you against him. It's the law. It's me. And we're not backing down." As I held her, I realized the truth. The paper itself couldn't stop him. But the act of signing it, of standing up and saying no more, had changed something in her. For the first time she had fought back. And though the battle wasn't over, I knew she had taken the first step toward reclaiming her life. That night, as she finally slept peacefully in the spare bedroom, I sat awake, the protective order on the table in front of me. I traced the words with my finger, knowing it was just the beginning of a long fight. He wouldn't go quietly. He had already promised that much. But neither would we. The days that followed were a strange mix of quiet and tension, like waiting for a storm you knew was coming but couldn't predict. My sister moved through the apartment with more energy, helping me with chores, cooking meals, even humming softly under her breath when she thought I wasn't listening. She was different now. Still fragile, yes, but there was a flicker of strength in her that hadn't been there before. Filing the report, getting the protective order, it had shifted something deep inside her. She knew she wasn't entirely safe, but she wasn't invisible anymore. And yet the shadow lingered. Every creak in the hallway, every buzz of the phone, every knock at the door made her freeze. The protective order was paper, not steel. And we both knew men like him didn't let go easily. One evening, 3 nights after she filed, we were sitting on the couch watching a movie. She had curled up under a blanket, her head resting against the armrest, and I was finally starting to believe maybe, just maybe, we could carve out a little peace. The popcorn bowl sat empty on the table, and the glow of the TV flickered across her tired but calm face. Then there was a knock at the door. It wasn't a polite knock, not the kind of tap from a neighbor borrowing sugar. It was sharp, hard, like someone trying to break through with sheer force of will. My sister stiffened instantly, her breath catching in her throat. "Stay here," I whispered, rising to my feet. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my ears. I edged toward the door, peering through the peephole. My stomach dropped. It was him. He stood there, his shoulders hunched, eyes blazing even in the dim hallway light. His fist came down again, rattling the doorframe. "Open the damn door," he barked, his voice muffled but unmistakable. "You think you can hide from me?" I stepped back, trying to keep my own panic in check. My sister had already risen, clutching the blanket like it could protect her. "He's here," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know." I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed 911. "Stay behind me." The dispatcher answered, calm and measured, and I forced myself to explain. Violation of a protective order, threatening behavior, urgent. They promised an officer was on the way. But seconds stretched into minutes, and the banging grew louder, angrier. "You think the cops will save you," he roared. "You're my wife. You belong to me. No piece of paper changes that." The words sliced through the air, each one a knife. My sister trembled, tears streaming down her face, but something shifted in her eyes. The fear was still there, yes, but it was no longer the only thing. There was anger too. She stepped forward, past me, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. I reached for her arm, desperate to pull her back, but she shook her head. "No," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "I need to do this." Before I could stop her, she called out through the door. Her voice shook, but it carried. "You don't own me. Not anymore." There was silence on the other side, heavy and dangerous. Then he laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "You think you can talk to me like that? After everything I've done for you?" "You hit me," she shouted, her voice rising, cracking but powerful. "You lied to me. You betrayed me. And I'm done. Do you hear me? I'm done." The pounding stopped. For a moment, it was so quiet I thought he had gone. But then came a thud. His shoulder slamming against the door. The frame shook. "Open up," he bellowed. "Or I'll." The sound of sirens cut through his words. Sharp, urgent, growing louder by the second. He froze. Through the peephole, I saw his head jerk toward the sound, panic flashing across his face. For once, he wasn't in control. He cursed under his breath, then turned and bolted down the hallway just as the red and blue lights washed through the window. Moments later, the police arrived, storming the building, their radios crackling. My sister clung to me as we explained, showing them the protective order, the text messages, the bruises. Officers spread through the area, and within minutes, they had him in custody outside. His wrists bound in cold steel. Even from the window, I could hear him shouting, his rage spilling into the night. But it didn't matter anymore. Because for the first time, he wasn't shouting at her. He wasn't holding her. He wasn't hurting her. He was contained. When the door finally closed behind the last officer, silence filled the apartment. My sister sank onto the couch, her entire body shaking. I sat beside her, wrapping my arm around her shoulders. For a long while we just sat there, breathing, the weight of everything settling over us. Finally she whispered, "It's over." I tightened my hold on her. "Yes," I said softly. "It's over." But it wasn't just the end of him. It was the beginning of something else. The next weeks were hard. There were court hearings, statements, questions that reopened wounds. But my sister faced them. She stood in front of the judge, her voice steady as she recounted the abuse. She showed her bruises, shared her fear, and for once, the truth was on record. Undeniable, unshakable. He was charged, and though the legal battle stretched on, the protective order became more than paper. It became power. Slowly, my sister began to rebuild. She found a counselor who specialized in domestic violence, someone who helped her untangle the knots he had tied in her mind. She started to laugh again, at first quietly, then louder, freer. She bought a notebook and began journaling, pouring out years of silence onto the page. And one morning, she came to me with a small smile, holding her coffee mug in both hands. "I think I want to get my own place," she said. The words didn't scare me. They filled me with pride. She wasn't running away, she was stepping forward. The day she moved into her new apartment, the walls were bare, the furniture mismatched, but it was hers. She stood in the doorway, looking around like she was seeing freedom for the first time. "This is mine," she whispered. "Just mine." I hugged her tight, tears pricking my eyes. "Yes, it's yours. And so is your life." In the months that followed, she flourished. She enrolled in evening classes, something she had always wanted to do but was never allowed. She started making friends again, real friends, ones who saw her as more than someone's wife. Slowly, she became her own person again, piece by piece. Sometimes the past still haunted her, a loud knock at the door, the buzz of her phone at night. But now she met those moments with strength. She wasn't the same woman who had collapsed at my door at 1:30 a.m. She was stronger, braver, alive in a way she hadn't been in years. And as I watched her build her new life, I realized something too. That night, when she arrived battered and broken, I thought my job was to protect her, to shield her. But the truth was, all I had done was stand beside her until she found the strength to protect herself. The real victory wasn't that he was gone. The real victory was that she had chosen herself. And she never looked back. Sparkles, if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Twisted Fate Chronicle for more powerful and emotional stories.